I won't subject you to that for long.
Welcome to Baking with Frank. Frank Rush was a baker at the turn of the 20th century at the Uffelman Baking Company in Cincinnati, and then at his own bakery in Newport, Kentucky. Frank was also my great-grandfather. Through his handwritten batch-sized recipe book, I'm breaking down his recipes and getting to know him better. I'm Tom Mattingly, and this is Baking with Frank.
Welcome back to Baking with Frank. So, we are back on the Frank train with Frank's Spice Cupcakes. Now, I know this will come as a surprise, but there is no mention of spice in Frank's Spice Cupcakes. So we're going to improvise a little bit, just like I did right there. Welcome. So, we are... Come on, brain. We're softening up some butter and got that here in the mixer. Get that down there so you can see it. And we're going to add to that 1 egg just to get that incorporated. Boom. And so Frank's recipe calls for lard, number one, and we're using butter, but also called for 3/4 of a pint of molasses. Now, I didn't have that much molasses, so this is a little bit of a congealed mix of corn syrup, molasses, and maple syrup. Actually smells pretty good. So we're going to give that a shot. And I held off on the full half pint because that just seemed like a lot. 3/4 of a pint, sorry, 3/4 of a pint. That seemed very sweet. So I figure we can mix it up, and if it's not sweet enough, we can add more in. There we go. Let's get all that in there. There we go. And we'll give that a mix. All right, that's pretty well mixed. So the next thing we're putting in is 6 ounces of crumbs. Now, these are white liquid. These are the crumbs from the Springerly cookies at Christmas. Put those in. Turn that up so you couldn't see them if they're spilled. Give that a mix. And add to it 8 ounces, half a pint of water. You know, I think we're going to let that soak a minute because those Springerly cookies are a little dense and they've been in the freezer. So let's let them soak up a little goodness. Now, Frank actually has 2 spice cupcake recipes, neither of which have spice, but one uses raisins and one uses currants. We know my feelings here. So we're going to use a berry mixture, dried berries, of course. That is dried cherries, dried cranberries, dried blueberries, and dried strawberries. And that is a half pound of said mixed berries. I'm going to pop that in, stir it a little bit more. While that's mixing, if I can get that open, we're going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla. Right there. From our friends at Penzeys. You're going to add in a half teaspoon of baking soda. Just like that. And here's where it's going to get controversial. Frank didn't tell me what spice to use. So since it's berries, we're going to use basil. Because I thought it sounded good. Tried basil. Because it's too early in the spring to have fresh. Here we go. Okay, so it was still a little too liquid. So I made the radical step of adding 3/4 of a cup of flour to the batter. And hey, it looks like a batter now. So, still a little thin, but not terribly. So, I'm going to fill up the cups. And since it's a cupcake and not a muffin, I'm going a little closer to the top than probably the recipe would say. And also because, Frank didn't leave us any instructions. So, just taking those up to about 3/4 of the way. That was a splash. You're in the splash zone. Well, you chose where you're sitting. All right, usually how this is gonna go. I'm not gonna make you watch that forever. All right, so besides just putting my hand in batter, we ended up with 16 in the end. Had to get some ancillary holders there, and there was more splash zone. But I have the oven preheated to 375. We'll put them in for 15 to 20 minutes and see what we got.
Here we are out of the oven, looking good.
All right, so 20 minutes in the end. Here we are. We're gonna give it a run. If I can get it out of this thing. It smells good. So I will go with less basil next time, but it's actually really nice. We're gonna keep this one around too.